And now, your host and my dad, Matt Reiner.
Welcome back to the AI and Finance, where we try to distill the rapid and rampant accelerating news stories of AI and relate a fact to what it means to us. How do we focus in on what matters and then understand what it means and how we can act on that going forward? So that's what we try to do today on these episodes on a monthly basis. And this month, it was all about stop showing me, start doing for me. That was the headline around AI. We're going to talk about three different stories. And the first one is a economic study index that Anthropic puts out. They put it out about every 6 months. We're going to talk through it. I thought it was really interesting, some highlights there. The other one is, if you haven't heard about it, you'll hear about it very soon. This thing called OpenClaw, which we'll talk about, launching, and it really had just changed and put at least the former Twitter sphere X on fire. Figuratively, because it is the most talked about thing on that network right now. And then we're going to talk about why I think SaaS is dead and why Claude Cowork actually is providing us the framework of where the industry is going. And, I think that that's the thread around all of this, is that what I found in all of these stories that happened in the past month is that they're all showing us that AI is moving from just being this conversational, me ask a question, you tell me an answer or give me some insider feedback, to me tell you what to do and you go do it. Or maybe with Claude, with OpenClaw, it's the idea of you go figure it out yourself and go do it on your own. So we'll get into all that. The first one I want to talk about is this Anthropic economic index. And, I think that there's a few different takeaways I want to touch on. First is that we saw this past reading in this report that the idea of augmentation. So augmentation means using AI to help augment you as a human, asking it to be like a project manager or be like a thought partner, etc., versus automation, which is delegating and telling it to do something. And what we found in this most recent study is that for the consumer, augmentation eclipsed automation, which is interesting because in the last study, we saw automation eclipsing augmentation, meaning that more people are just telling AI to go do something and then just letting it be done and saying that that was the end result. And now what we're starting to realize is that it is more of a tool for augmentation, which is something we have talked about, where AI is not replacing us, it's meant to augment us. And we started to see that here. Now, what's super interesting though about that particular data point in the study was that businesses, enterprise API usage, which is the idea of using Claude from the backend. So having developers develop the ability to tap Claude and send it things through the pipelines, the technological pipelines called APIs. Enterprises are using Claude to automate 77% of their tasks, which is interesting, right? Consumers are using it to augment, while enterprises are using it to automate, which is a really kind of interesting dilemma or paradox. And I was trying to understand why and thinking about it, and it kind of makes sense, right? Businesses have a lot more process definitions. They have a lot clearer processes of how they do things. They, business that's been in around for 25, 34, 50 years, whatever it may be, they have clear processes. So they have that definition. They have a better infrastructure to support automation, right? They have people that can watch it. They have teams that are involved in it. They also have a higher cost of human time. So they're really trying to work to, mitigate human time and use the cost that they're paying for human time for elevated tasks. So all those like low level tasks they want to automate away. And like I said, they have more structure and repeatable tasks. So that may be the reason. But I thought it's just interesting as AI continues to get more capable. Consumers, everyday users, are using it not to automate their life away, but augment with them on their life, which is a really interesting aspect of AI. Another interesting takeaway from the study was this whole concept around prompting. They did this regression analysis around prompting, and they found that people with higher education levels get better results from AI. And I was wondering, well, why is that? Well, the idea came that people that prompt AI better get better ideas. It's the same thing. If you have a mediocre prompt, you're going to get a mediocre response from AI. If you have a lackluster prompt into AI, you're going to get a lackluster response from AI. The reality is that's where a lot of the hallucination comes from, because when you put in something that they don't have enough context, meaning they being AI doesn't have enough context, well, what does it do? It does what every other human being does. It goes and makes up stuff, right? If you go give information or a project to an intern and say, go do this for me, and you don't provide a context, the intern is going to make up what it thinks that they want you to know and go do it, and it may not be what you want. And so sophistication in prompting creates sophistication in responses from AI, which goes to show what it means for all of us is that investing in how to prompt, investing at being really good at being able to explain and create clear contextual understanding for the AI is a skill. It's a skill that we all need. It's a skill that we need to train our people on. And it's probably one of the most important skills that there is. And you think about price sensitivity with AI, right? You think back to your economic 101 days, econ 101, sitting in those college rooms about econ. Price sensitivity, a 1% cost increase on AI is only a 0.29 or 0.29% usage reduction, meaning people don't care about price increases. They are going to continue to use it no matter what. Because if there was a huge, worry about price increases in AI, then when a 1% increase, you'd have a much more drastic decrease in utilization. And we haven't seen that, which means that AI companies know that, which is likely going to happen is that AI is going to continue to increase in prices. The last thing that I think is interesting is this concept around descaling. There's this chart in the report, and I'll put the link to the report in the podcast notes as well, is this idea of distribution of AI tasks versus like what a human does. And it was talking about like the number of years needed of experience to be able to do the task. So for instance, if it was 13 years needed, that means that you would need a freshman in college education. If it was 10 years, that's like a sophomore in high school education level to perform the tasks. And what we're finding is that AI is starting to be able to do higher education level tasks. It's being able to do now tasks that would be needed to be done by like a 16-year education level. But what they found in this study, which was super interesting, is that it's de-skilling workers because it's leaving really a lot of the very thoughtful, deep thinking work to the humans, which is something that we all need to be cognizant of, because if AI is doing all of our thinking and then we're just doing the things that are necessary outside of that thinking, then it starts to kind of change or rewire brains. I mean, I'll be honest. I just recently went and downloaded and I subscribed for a year to the New York Times Games app because I realized that my thought process, how I'm thinking sometimes, I'm starting to forget some things a little bit more frequently than I used to because I am using AI so much more that I need to retrain my brain. Brains are just like our bodies. We need to nurture it and we need to train it. And so I'm trying to do these brain thought exercises to see if I can work on it. I'll tell you how it works in future episodes. We'll see. But, I think what this study really shows is that it aligns with what I'm seeing and we all talk about on AI, is that integrating AI into our work is the best opportunity for getting the most out of AI for our work, right? Integrating it, not automated, meaning that I'm not going to just send AI an email from a client and get a response and then forward it on without looking at it. No, I'm going to have AI draft it. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to prompt it again, and then I'm going to send it out. I'm going to work with AI, have it as an augmented partnership as opposed to an automated, push off of my task from that standpoint. I think that it's also this really focused high need of prompt engineering. We talked about it, we got away from it, but the need for having prompting skills is greater than ever. And if there's one thing that we can all do in our firms for our youngest employees and also for ourselves is train prompting. We have compliance training once a quarter. We have investment committee once every 2 weeks. We all have these. What I think we need to have is prompt skill training at a minimum once a quarter, and most likely once a month and maybe once every 2 weeks. And so what am I doing with all of this, right? What am I doing with all this information from the Anthropic study? Well, the first thing I'm doing is, I'm building workflows that I'm incorporating AI as a participant in those workflows. This is like my stepping stone to rethinking how I work. I'm trying to get AI implemented into how I work now to then give me time, space, and leverage to reimagine how I want to work going forward. So I'm building it into workflows as a participant in what I'm doing. I am investing more in prompting and getting prompting skills than ever before. I am conversing with AI at every point that I can. And I'm not just asking for the answers. I'm asking for its feedback on how it would approach this problem. I'm asking for its thoughts on how I should, think about writing particular things or presenting particular topics to my leadership team or my transformation team or whatever it may be. I am investing, I'm asking it for prompts that I can then take to another AI tool to then use so it's more sophisticated. And finally, I'm auditing everything that I do. I mean, everything that I do, I'm looking at it. My mind has been on fire about where I can now put into place different AI tools to make me better and more sophisticated and more intellectual and more impactful in every aspect of my work and my personal life. So let's move into the second story. OpenClaw. When it came out, you may have heard of something called Clawdbot. Then you may have heard of something called Moltbot. But now it finalized and is at OpenClaw because it got sued by Anthropic because it was called Clawdbot, has nothing to do with Claude. But this thing caught on fire within just days. They had these things, I had to look up what it meant, 100,000 GitHub stars in days, 2 million visitors in a week. What is a GitHub star? That means that over 100,000 developers bookmarked this open source project on GitHub as worth watching in just days. And that is virality, right? What it is it's an AI assistant that runs locally on your computer. It does everything. And it figures out how to do things that it doesn't know how to do. And so what this spurred, because there was like worries about it being on their personal computer and seeing access to all their files and folders, what this spurred is a boon for Apple. Because everybody went out and started to buy Mac Minis. Those were those little Mac square boxes. They're about this big. Mac Minis, they went out and bought them, and they were sold out. Because what they wanted to do is they wanted to put OpenClaw on the Mac Mini, created its own email address, its own instance. It didn't have access to its own folders, and created its own assistant on its own server from that standpoint. And so it's able to manage emails, update your calendar. You can even ask it to reply to you with voice if you want, and it's going to figure out how to go use something that we've talked about on this show before, 11 Labs, and figure out how it has its API, how to build its API, teach itself all of it, and come back within just maybe a day or a couple hours and have that ready for you. It is completely autonomous, executing on it on your behalf in every which way. There's some demos that I watched over the weekend because it was enthralling, crazy, right? Users asking for a Kanban board, which is like one of those like project management boards, built it out within seconds. Another gave it $2,000 to trade, invest, to try to make $1 million. Let's say that one, it didn't work so well on. The bot lost everything. It wasn't effective in the trade. So that gives us all a lot of hope as well. And then there was another test where the bot built itself a visual interface overnight, unprompted. And here's the other thing. Go check out Moltbook, just if you're wanting to have some fun. Moltbook is a Reddit thread, a Reddit website for agents only. The agents are talking to each other on Moltbook. It sounds like kind of crazy. Right now, it's more of something like, hey, this is interesting. It's fun to learn about. It's interesting to look about. I don't find it fearful to my job and what we do one bit. I find it so opportunistic for what we can do because it shows us what we can do with AI now. I talked about it in my 2026 predictions that this is the year we move from AI being this cool little like project to AI being something that is actually creating actual ROI and doing things for us. And this is one of those examples. It's happening earlier in the year than I ever thought it would. But what this now shows is the power of agents. Agents are the next level of AI that's going to change how we work and think about from AI and utilization in the future. The challenge with OpenClaw really is that many people got their credentials exposed because it was an open source. That's why it's like one of those things that's like interesting to look at. It's interesting to talk about. It's fun for headlines to talk about Moltbook, but it's the reality of it is that there's still a long way to go for it. But if you want to be someone that is future looking, this is an opportunity to learn a lot. OpenClaw may not be the future, but it signals where we're going, right? These kind of actions, proactive management, the ability to respond to emails, to do calendar scheduling. I mean, heck, I had been spending the past 2 weeks and I built my own agent. I don't know how to code. And it's got me so invigorated about all these visions that I've had before. And now I'm able to bring them into reality in these prototypes that I now implement into my workflows that I'm now using. And so the lesson
although there's a lot of fears and there's things being exposed and it's fearful about like book and agents talking to each other, is not to avoid agents. It's to understand the trade-offs, understand how it could be used and applied within your business, and learn more about it. Don't avoid it because it sounds so crazy. Lean into it because it is the reality of where the future is going. Not that we're replaced, but that agents will be working alongside us, not replacing us from that standpoint. And so what does this mean? What am I using? What am I doing with this information from OpenClaw other than just following the threads on X, which is super interesting. If you want to go check it out, you'll find everything and anything on OpenClaw. Is create an access hierarchy, right, for your firm. What I mean by this is that as an enterprise, the thing about AI and how it's been evolving is that AI is one of those that's been kind of tilted on its head. Usually technologies come from the government, like the GPS started in the government and then went to enterprises and then came to consumers. AI is coming from the consumer-led, meaning consumers had access to it first, then went to enterprises and governments trying to catch up. And so what that means is that if you don't know about it from a leadership standpoint, there's probably a lot of people on your organization that have heard about it and are maybe using AI tools in different ways. And they may want to start building agents to help them professionally. They may want to start integrating technologies together to help create efficiencies. And so we have to think about access hierarchy, right? Where is there like public information, low risk workflows that they can access, internal data where there's medium risk workflows, and then client data, which is high risk. And create these protocols now. Don't just tell them to avoid it, because that's what happens in any type of environment where you say don't do it. Just like with my kids, when I say don't do it, they do it. When I say they can do it, but here are the ground rules, they stay within those ground rules. And so the quicker we can get ahead of it, the better. That's what we're doing inside of our firm. Second is that I think that with agents, be very cognizant of what you connect it to right out the gate. Don't connect it to production information right away. Create some databases that have, or data sets that have fake data that you can learn from in that standpoint, or very low risk, like I was talking about, public information data sources to test things out. And then finally, if you're experimenting with agent tools, use an isolated environment. Go buy a Mac Mini. I mean, it is pretty funny that Apple just like gained so much revenue from this random thing, but really go and try to create a new environment to try it. That's what's called a sandbox, is like an environment where it's okay to test it. I think that that's something that you should go do. So what I learned from this is that agents are real. They're here faster than I had thought, but the risks are really there, and we have to be really cognizant and understanding of what those are. So the final thing is this idea around Claude Cowork and why I think that SaaS technology is dead. I looked at it just before I did this episode. I looked at the iShares ETF around software, and it was down, at least at the point when I looked at it, 16% year to date. That was at the beginning of the year. That was through January. 16%. And I was wondering, why is software so down? And I mean, I understood it because it's been talked about since the summer of last year. SaaS and software is dead. I remember when Mark Andreessen came out back in I think early 2010, 2012 maybe, and he said, software is eating the world. SaaS is eating the world. And now I think that AI is eating SaaS and the world. And that's the difference of it. The challenge is that all these technologies that we're using today, I think, are going to be irrelevant in the next 5 or 10 years. And the reason is because building software used to be very costly, time consuming, the architect to build and then to maintain. And so there was always this conversation around, do we buy it? Do we rent it? Do we build it? And we always decided to rent because the costs were prohibitive to build it or buy it. But now with AI, the ability to innovate and build your own technology has become easier. It's not fully there. There's still a lot of risks associated with it. You still need highly sophisticated engineers to review what you're doing if you want to productionalize it. But we have made great strides to it. And the ability to maintain it is a lot easier than it ever was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so there's this world that I can envision and that we can see. And it was an article that I read from an Israeli newspaper, actually, that talked about this, that building technology for our specific needs is going to be more of the common stance than adopting technologies that are there for the masses. Because in reality, if we're all using Holistiplan and we're all using eMoney and we're all using Salesforce, what is our differentiation? It's the same thing that we're seeing with LLMs. If everybody is using the same LLMs, then where is the differentiation? The differentiation is imagination. Because we're all getting the same answers. We're all going to the same source, the same well. The diversification, the sophistication, the opportunity is narrower. And so I think that a lot of what we're going to see as the value from AI in terms of the efficiency gains that fall to the bottom line, it's going to fall from our ability to start eliminating technologies from our tech stack because we develop it ourselves at a much lower cost to maintain and to build at that point. And that's where Claude Cowork comes in. We talked about OpenClaw, where OpenClaw gets access to your entire system. There's an open source, meaning that anybody could access it, access the code, etc. To Claude Cowork, which recently came out. I'll put a link in the notes as well for this on this one. Is Claude Cowork within your Claude instance? You can connect it to your different files. It can do analysis of the files. It can reorganize your entire file structure. It can label your files for you. It can take actions like look at your calendar and send emails at your emails. You can connect it now to specific parts of your computer and it can take action. And it goes through a lot more levels of thought than traditional Claude does. And so Claude Cowork now is that next level of AI. We're now moving more and more towards agents. OpenClaw is this like crazy thing that's caught the headlines, which probably won't go away because more people will try to do it, to Claude Cowork, which is a more sophisticated approach to using AI. So, here's some examples of what Claude Cowork has done. Former Amazon exec built a whole CRM in 2 days with Claude Cowork. I think about another person took all of we all have it in our folders. We all have like those screenshots folders on our Macs. If we take a screenshot, it just goes into one folder. Another person took all those screenshots, labeled them and organized them into folders within about 3 seconds. It's something incredible that we're able to do now, right? And so, I think about like enterprise technologies and trying to get in these long contracts with them. I think that's a scary proposition, and that's where I sit. That's the realization that I'm sitting with as I read this information, and I research this, and I talk to people about this, is that I'm thinking about our current tech stack, all of our software. Like, we're not getting rid of it tomorrow. We're not getting rid of it in a year or 2 years. But when I think about like a 5, 10, 15-year plan to the future, I'm trying to ask myself, like, where are our advisors going to live? Where are our clients going to live? And we may not need 30 different subscriptions in 5 years or 10 years. Maybe we only need 5. And maybe we don't need these huge, we don't need the full package. Maybe we just need the bare bones for some of them. And maybe we don't need any of them. Like I look at all our highest paid ones, that are the highest cost ones. Do we need all those? Every year the costs keep going up. Like they've got to figure out how to make revenue, so they're going to continue to increase the price on us. But that then is hard for us, and now the tools are there for us. And so then I'm thinking about, all right, well, if I look at that, what in our business can we build right now? My goal is to build 5 to 10 agents for myself personally. And I look at like our financial planning software and our CRM software, and I look at our communication software, and I'm like, well, can we maybe build something that's more tailored towards us, because we don't need all the feature sets. We know what we need. Is there something that we can build that's more sophisticated for us that also allows us to differentiate ourselves from the person next door? Potentially. And if the maintenance cost does become cheap and the build cost becomes cheaper, then that ROI and that maths, as they say in the PE and the VC world. I don't know how many years away that is, but that may be 3 to 5 years. So what are the things that I'm doing to prepare for this change? Whether it happens or not, I think it's exciting. I don't think it's fearful. I think it's an exciting time. First, we got to audit all of our software contracts. Like, what is in them? How long do we have in them? What's our ability to get out of those from that standpoint? What are our commitments for those contracts? I would start documenting. We've talked about this many times, and it's the whole idea of our inability to break down process, the curse of knowledge. Our inability to break down processes because we don't know them, because we've been doing them for so long, they just become habit. We can't break them down step by step. I would spend a lot of time working with AI and figuring out how to break down our processes so that we can figure out what is actually needed within our technologies we have and what can we automate and build on our own. And then third, I would hire and train for building. Find people that can help you do this. Get people on your team. Start having in your hiring plans over the next couple of years someone that understands and can build technology, or train people within them. I mean, within our own organization, we've already had 3 or 4 people that had no building or coding experience already invest time, energy, and effort into learning and understanding it, and they started to build really important things that are impactful to our business today. And then the final thing is as you renegotiate contracts, my suggestion would be is shorten up the time frame that you have them. Because the world is moving so fast, things are changing so quickly that you don't want to be in a position where you're tied to software that's becoming antiquated, when the ability to build and maintain software that you need that's like that is easier and able to be done. And so, here's what really connects all 3 of these headlines. AI is moving from informing to executing, right? We're moving from just telling us what it is to doing. We saw that with OpenClaw. We saw that with Claude Cowork. We're starting to see that with the impact on SaaS software. And that creates a three-way tension. Trainee tension, we've got to invest in training. This is not something that we can expect our people to just understand and do. And it's not something they're just going to learn by just launching simple tools like AI note takers or just giving them the tools. We've got to give them the tools and the training. It's a security aspect as well. As we get more autonomy, right? As we get agents doing more for us, we've got to invest heavily into security. And we can't let our inability or lack of desire to invest time and energy into that to keep us from investing into agents, because agents are coming in that way. And then the investment tension. It's a hard, CFO level strategic thought that we have to go through. Do we invest into SaaS software continuing? Or do we invest into starting to try to build some of these things ourselves? It was always crazy to think about building our own. I always got, ridiculed for wanting to build things on my own. And it was because the costs were so high. And it wasn't just the cost to build it that was so high. It was the maintenance cost that was so high. And what I've realized now is that has come down drastically. And it will continue to come down, I think, in the years to come. And I think that the advisors who are going to really thrive based on these headlines that I've learned are the ones that find and be intentional about dedicating time, effort, and focus to learning what AI agents are, how AI agents work, and how AI agents can be applied into their work. They're the ones that are training the others in their business, training themselves, and then they're learning by doing in the business. The thing is that the human element's never going away. Clawdbot or OpenClaw, whatever they want to call themselves today, is very cool. It does a lot. It's more of a learning example for me than it is a rational example to be utilized in the day-to-day world, because we still have to tell it what we want it to do. And if you go read Molt book and you see what they're talking about, you see there still needs to be a human at the playground. So with that, that's another episode of AI in Finance. Have a great rest of your week.